Hello and welcome back to the channel where we are building a video game from scratch using Love2d and Lua. Yesterday we got a text box working over here. There is one problem with it though. Well, there's a couple problems actually. So like, if we look at where the here is supposed to print up here, right? It starts typing it here, H-E-R, and then by the time it tries to put the E, the limit on the printf tells it to wrap to the next line. So if we look at that again and just kind of watch the here as it's being typed, you see how it starts being typed and then it moves to the next line, and I think that's distracting. So I think we want to, instead of using the printf function to do the wrapping for us, even though it's super easy to do it like that, I think I want to do it slightly different, because it's like the NPCs will have their own dialogue, and I guess there won't be more than one page of text on a signpost like this, but we need to figure this out for the dialogue system, because it's just one of those things that is just slightly annoying. There it looks fine because the wrap doesn't interfere and doesn't need to go to the next line. But something like there, it just looks distracting to me. So I think today that's what I'll be focusing on trying to fix. Although I don't know how far I'll get into doing that, because we have to do everything manually, right? We have to tell it. We'd have to search for, one second, I gotta email work here real quick. Left work early today to stream because I've got other stuff going on today, but it's tricky because we have to basically know as we're typing the letters of each word, hey, will the end of this word end up on the next line? If so, just go ahead and put it on the next line already. So I don't exactly know how we're gonna do it. I can walk through what we've done for this current, which we're using a substring method, I guess I would call it, for saving the string to print. And when we run the :sub, it takes in two arguments. The first index of the character, you want to start the substring, and then the second character to end the substring. So when you give it the same arguments, then it just pulls the one character that you tell it to. So all we're doing is setting a timer, and then every time we trigger past the threshold, we save a result to itself ... which is the concatenating two strings together. So current result gets the current result plus the next character index. Then we increment that index, reset the timer, and then it'll go through, and that's how we're getting the one letter at a time on the text. But yeah, we're gonna have to do something different, because right now we're using the printf, and that highlights it all nice and pretty, but we have to figure out how to do this. So maybe we start with some pseudocode. So I can wrap my head around how we're trying to do this. So we basically want to do one character at a time, right? So like we print one character at a time, but we don't want to do this if the next character is part of a word that once the whole word is printed, the end of that string would be past the limit of our text box. So that's one kind of confusing thing I don't know how to solve. Yesterday on the stream, what's up, Norix? How's it going? Prosto was saying that we could use this get width function to get the pixels width of a certain... I'm going to have to pull up the documentation because I already forgot. Get width. So basically, we can know what the limit is, which we know the limit is going to be... yeah, it's not this. I thought it was get the width in pixels of the window. No, I was thinking that we can get the width of anything we pass it, so that might be not what we need. So basically we have to wait until we find a word, right? So like upon finding a word, we would add one character to the result string and then this is where we can kind of split this up, right? Where we would say, once we find a word, then we want to check whether or not if the end of that word plus the current result string, if the current result string plus the end of that word that we're about to print has a width longer than our limit, text box limit, then we would want to do a new line, right? So we would say add new line so that we can add one character to the result string on the next line. So, and then, you know, we can break down this pseudocode would be broken down even further into like, if current character is alpha num, either a symbol, basically not a space. If character is not space, then cycle through count characters until space. That gives us the length of the word. So my initial kind of idea on how to do this is that I'm hoping that the text we chose is a fixed width of character. And I guess the way to test that is to print up a bunch of different characters and see if we can have it. Because if instead of, you know, the thing, this part right here is tricky, right? Because it's saying if the width of the result string, how do we know how wide a printed string is? And one way of doing that is if we know the width of every character, then we can say, okay, well, we only allow 20 characters per line, so if the next word would put us over that limit, we'd go ahead and put a new line in. So that's my current guess. We'll have to see if this text font is actually a fixed width font. I don't know if it is, but I think that's a good first step to see. So I think instead of doing this test in the signpost class, we would want to just put it in the map or scene or wherever. We could put it in the play state if we wanted to, and we can put it right here saying like, let's just do a test of a couple different texts. So we're going to print onto the screen a text of let's just see how many numbers we can get, right? So like this will be 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, and then that'll be 30. So just to see about how many characters of numbers we can put on, and then we'll compare it with capital letters, lowercase letters, and symbols and see if there is a consistent spacing in between them. I mean, I don't know of a different way we could check the constant width, but let's see. So we're going to print up that string, and we're going to print it up at the top of our screen here at 0, 0. And then we want to also print, let's say, lowercase numbers. And we would put it right below the other string we just printed. And then, let's see if we can do this with Vim. We're going to highlight everything that's in the apostrophes, and we want to capitalize it. Nice. That was nice. Okay. We didn't put it on a new line here. We'll put it on a new line, and then we'll see. Okay, so look, we clearly have different lengths. Yeah, we clearly have different lengths there. Yeah, so it looks like numbers take up less space than lowercase that takes less space than uppercase. Okay, I want to see... I wonder if we... I don't think we can use this getWidth function on things that aren't drawables. I don't know. Let me see if there is a colon getWidth, image data getWidth. Oh, it looks like we can... determines, well, let's see here. Determines the maximum width taken by the given string. So we can run the get width and pass in the text. And it should give us, does it give us the pixels? Let's see. Let's try to print up the width of each of these, and we'll see if we get different values. Okay, so I think what we want to do is take this and save it in a variable, right? So we can put we can just say local nums gets a string of nums, and let's just try to print up the width of this nums. So we're going to say nums get width. Attempt to call method get width a nil value. So what did I do wrong? It looks like you give the text. Yeah, it's not a... Okay, this is weird. So the documentation looks like it says font colon get width, and then you give it the text. So I think, how does it... I want to see a use of this. I guess I'm curious, like, is this the actual font we use, or we literally just type font get width? Let's try that. So we'll try it. So we'll say font get width of our nums. Yeah. So I believe we're at, what font do we even set to? Classic font. We do both, but I think classic font is the one we're using, I think. So let's do... Classic font, get width. No way. It did give us the width of it. So let me see. I can't really see the white. I'll clear the screen here real quick so that I can see the white behind it. So we'll just do a love.graphics set color for the debug background. Oh, and we want a dot clear here. Okay. Okay, so 178. So if we take out one character here, I don't think it won't go down by one number, it'll go down by how many pixels that character was. So about 9 pixels for that character. So let's test this out. So like, let's see what's the width of 1 is 8. The width of 2 is 9. Okay, so yeah, they are not consistent. Okay, but we can use this get width, font get width to get the width of our result string, and ultimately, I think this can work. I think this can work. So let's do the let's get our numbers back here, and then we'll also we'll save these other variables. So that we can calculate their width, just to make sure that we're getting, I mean, I'm pretty sure it's working. So we can say local caps gets a string of all the caps, and then local lower gets a string of all the lowercase, and then we're gonna put this same thing where we say, we give it the font we give it the get width, and then we pass in the string we want to get the width of. Okay, so it should be 178 and then bigger number and then bigger number. Sweet. Okay. I think it's working. So I do think that number there is the width of pixels of that string. But then again, does that... I'm kind of curious if that changes if we change the... Oh, let's see where we define this classic font, because we should have yeah, 8-point font. Okay, that makes sense. So if we were to increase this font size up to 80, for example, those numbers not 178 anymore, it's 178 with a 0 at the end. So that looks right. Okay, so that's all working. So we are able to get the width. Okay, so let's go back to our pseudocode here. Okay, so we basically need to start counting, and we need to find where our word ends. Hey, what's up, Magnetonics? How's it going? The pseudocode should be something like this, where we say, okay, we found a word. Let's pause time, essentially. Go until we find an empty character, which would signify the end of that word. We will concatenate that next word that we haven't printed up yet, even the first character of. We're going to concatenate that with the current result string. And if the get width of that string in our font's width size is bigger than our text box limit, then we want to add a new line before we go ahead and just insert the first character of that word. And then on the loop, that's the first step that we go like outside of time there, and then it would be like, okay, since the next character is not a space, we're going to go ahead and add that character to the result string. So the only time we check the width of the font is gonna be, yo, that's fine, Magnetonics. Yo, thanks for stopping in, dude. Appreciate it. The only time we want to check whether or not the width of the result string is bigger than the limit is when we're at the beginning of a word, right? Because if we're in the middle of the word, it's presumably we've already checked the end of that word, and if we were to concatenate it with a result and then put it in there. Man, it's a lot of work just to fix one little thing that printf almost gives us for free. So, because the other thing is we have to, once we add the new line, we have to tell it at what Y position is the new line, instead of printf kind of doing that for us. Okay. Oh my goodness. So yeah, we don't want to printf. So I guess maybe the first thing we can do is just test how we would print up to 3 lines on a screen, right? So like this, we currently have about 3 lines of text fitting just about right. Like I think that's fine. If the text looks like that, that's fine. So 3 lines is going to be our limit. So we have to basically say, we basically have to have a line 1, line 2, and line 3, but then the question is, if there's only one line, does it render in the very center? Or does it render to the top? Or does the text box change size? You know, a lot of little things to think about. Because, like, for example, here, there's only 2 lines. Does it make sense for... I think it does make sense for it to be top left justified. And if there's more lines for, like, dramatic effect, then it'll still just go to the top left every time you paginate through. I think that makes sense to me. Yeah, I think anything more... I mean, it is easier to do it this way too, but I like to think that's not the reason I'm going about it. Because, yeah, like, if we had only one line of words, would we center it and center the text? I don't necessarily think so. So we have to have a function that says, you know, which line are we appending to the string here, or which line are we printing. I like, we literally just have to have 3 lines that we print, and then we would, if it's a new line, what the new line really is doing is just moving on to the next line number and then starting the thing over again. So I think we need 3 lines, and the result string, instead of just one big result string, we have a current result string, which is just the result of the current line we're at, and then we'd have to have a line count to know which line we're trying to add it to. So line count is going to get set to 1 upon initialization, and then let's just say, how would we do this? We would modify our Y position with a line count times whatever space we want to put. So we would say plus self.line count times whatever the offset is. So line count times line offset. I would call it text line offset. Y offset. I don't know. So we need that variable. So let's just give us that variable. So we'll go over here to constants, and we will give us this text line Y offset, and let's just say it's 5. I don't think that's enough, but let's just test it out. So we're rendering. We'd have to loop through each of our line counts. So whatever our line count is, we'd want to render, you know, if we have 1, we just render one line. If there's 3, we render 3 in pairs of self.line count. And then, so if the count we want to do, if the count is 3, I think we would have to have a line counter as well, because we have to know which line we're on to append to which line. So it's almost like we have to, oh my gosh, yeah, no, we have to store the result of each line somewhere. So I guess we can have a table of lines, and index 1 will be line 1, index 2 will be line 2, so forth. So for right now, key value in pairs of our line count. Now, I would rather do the number of values inside our self.lines. However many lines we have, print up that many lines, and the lines is the result. That's not so much right, but let's just see if the line count is working. Let's have a test variable here called local test gets hello test. Okay, and then self.lines. Well, for right now, we'll just put that there's 1 value inside our self.lines so that we at least render 1 line worth of stuff. And the thing we're trying to render is a test. So the idea here is that we just want to see if we got the Y offset, the text line Y offset correct. So there's probably a better way to do this. We would give it, 3 different lines. Right now, I'll just put 3 values. And then we'll print the same test, but on every different line count. So, shoot, yeah, this would have to be, the line count is actually gonna be K or key in this loop here. So we don't have a line count that we're using. Now we just have a table of lines, and we're saying on the first line, modify by the Y offset. Second line, modify it by 2 Y offsets. So let's see if we can print hello test more than 1 time, and if that Y offset is looking okay. All right, pairs table expected. Self.lines. Self.lines is a table. Oh, we need to put individual table values like this, otherwise it can't index into it. I'm pretty sure. But let's see. Okay, well, maybe not. Bet argument 1, table expected got number. Really? Yeah, table expected got number on signpost 46. Okay, let's just literally do yeah, it's late sometimes. I mean, this is a weird, not so normal stream time for me, so I don't blame ya, but hey, I'm glad you're here. Okay. We're just getting 1 line. We're not modifying. Oh, this is because it's a printf still. So let's get rid of the printf. We're only doing a dot print. We're printing a string, add an x of this, a width of this. This is where we want the I times our text line offset. And then we don't need this argument or this argument. I'm looking for 3 lines. Nice. Now, that looks wild. Now the text line Y offset is wrong because we need bigger. So if we were to do 12 instead, it'll get us closer. No, it won't. What is it doing there? We want to, we need to multiply it by the line offset, not add it. Okay, nice. So we do need to shift this up to negate the initial line offset. So we'll have to find where that is, but it's looking closer. Very scientific here. Okay, I think it needs to go up just a bit. Okay. It's close. Okay, sweet. So if that is the Y offset, that covers what printf was giving us for free. With a printf and we give it the limit align, it would auto wrap. But now what we need to do is we need to add it to our lines table. We need to add each line as we make it to the lines table. And the lines table has 3 tables of strings. And the tables of strings are the result of getting one character at a time concatenated to the current result. So if we can get, instead of doing test here, and instead we had our, we have a self result that we're doing this. So let's try to put the self result into our program and see. Nice. Okay, so we're able to get multiple lines printing. Now, obviously, we don't want to print them all at the same time. So that's the other issue. Sorry, I think maintenance is coming in. Okay. Okay, so it does know which text from which signpost, which is good. It's just that how would we trigger one line to, I guess we would leave the result of the subsequent line table indices empty until we finish one line at a time. So let's walk through. Oh my gosh, my brain's about to explode trying to think about this. Right now, all we're doing is saying we have one result field, and it starts as an empty string. And we go ahead and wait for the timer threshold. And once we pass that threshold, we concatenate the next character with our result string. We increment our character index and then reset our timer so that we can go concatenate a new one after the trigger has passed. So I guess the first step is like, maybe the first step is like, how do we get each and every line rendering one character at a time? and only starting once the previous line has finished. And then we can worry about populating the lines with the correct text, given the one parameter of text once we initialize the signpost. So we would have, like right here, this is the dot text, or the text parameter that we save into our dot text. And then, hold on one sec. I'm just going to give my partner an update that maintenance is in the house. Okay, so ideally, we would pass in the text once for this signpost, and then we wouldn't know how to parse this up into which lines, because that depends on the character type. Either it's capital or lowercase or symbol or number. So this self lines will probably be an empty table by the time we start. And then as we cycle through and do the whole count the line, if it's bigger than the width limit of the text box, add it to the next line. Let's work on that. So I think we want the timer, the text timer stuff. So I guess what I'm going to do is like start from scratch here, but leave it so I can look at what I did. And we're going to say, okay, we have a text timer, and that's going to be to trigger the next characters to be printed one at a time. And we increment it by delta time. And you know what? Let's try to do... I do think that the first good step is to just see if we can get these 3 lines printing once the other one is done. But what does that entail? That entails... I don't know what it entails. Because basically we only want to print... Right here, this is printing 3 strings all at once. But we'd want to print 3 different tables sequentially. But in game time, game time runs 60 times a second, and then every line will finish after a second or so. So it's trickier than that. Like... Let's just do a ghetto. Let's just do a ghetto line 1 printed. Right? And this way we can just trigger, like, only print line 1. I mean, this is ghetto, but... I'm okay with ghetto. I'm just trying to get it to work, right? Like... So basically we have a Boolean toggles for each step of the process. We printed line 1, we printed line 2, we printed line 3, all lines printed. For this scenario, we're just printing 3 lines. That's these 3 different strings that are in their own table. So if we were to go self.lines index 1, it would be line 1, index 2, line 2. We can test that out, but I'm pretty sure that's how it would work. And you know what? Actually, let's try to do this where we're going to say love.graphics.print, and we will print the line... we will print the self dot lines. That is our table of lines. We're going to say self dot lines index 1. Now that should be line 1, and let's just double check that. Because I want to test, it's only in our signpost, which means we'd have to do that. Okay, so yeah, that is line 1, and then if we were to go to lines 2, it would be this is line 2. Okay, so I'm curious if I were to go take this table syntax out, if that still remains true, or if that breaks it. So looking for line 2 still here. Okay, line 2. Okay, so we don't need those extra curly braces. And this would be line 3. Sweet. Okay. So the idea is we want to print one line at a time. So instead of doing the 1 through 3, we would need to offset by the, we would want to print up the self result. I guess we would do this, where we would say, like, if self dot, gosh, it's so messy. We want, like, if no lines are printed, right? So, like, if all of these are false, then we want to go ahead and print line 1. So we're going to say if line 1 is not printed and line 2 is not printed, and line 3 is not printed, then we want to print line 1, right? And then we'd have to have some sort of trigger to say, okay, line 1's printed by the time this is done. But, oh my goodness. Okay, so let's just see. We should print only line 1. So this, we would say, we'd say self.lines, index 1. We're only printing line 1. We would print lines 2 once this finishes, but this should just print 1 line now. Okay. Just created local ChatGPT-2 server. What'd it say? We want to turn this into a number instead of a string, or, oh, here, we can do... I guess we literally want line 1, so we would put a 1 here. Okay, so that prints 1 line at a time. If we were to switch this, it would print the second line. Okay, cool. And then the third line. You just asked it what the weather was, and it gave you that junk. You gotta tell him, like, dude, an appropriate response is sunny. If it's sunny, don't hallucinate. Okay, so the idea is we need to hide this logic. The print logic needs to be triggered based on which lines are printed or not, and we need to cycle which lines are printed or not based on what? We'd have to see. It'd be something in this, right, where we would say, yeah, how would we know we're done if the text index, oh, here, if the text index, here, we can do this. If the text index we're at, by the time we've printed everything, is equal to the text length, which we'll have to make sure we're getting the right length, then we would want to increment our lines that we're on, and that would probably be a better way to do it. Let me just see. text length. Okay, we get length of the text, but not length of the test that we're printing. No, yeah, we do, because we're still printing. We're not printing our dot lines, are we? Or I thought we were printing our text that we give it in the init. Yeah, it does the text wrap here. So that's coming from our declarations here. When we instantiate our class of signpost, that parameter of text is the does the text wrap here if we pass along text. So we're not doing the dot lines. I think we do need to do something like that, but we need to I'm thinking the way to do this is instead of all these toggles, we can have a single variable that prints all the lines in the line table, and it's like if it's 1, we print the first line and we're on the first line. If it's 2, so we get rid of all this stuff. I think we can add it so that we say like line index. That doesn't make a lot of sense, but line index, like which line we're on. Are we on the first line, the second line, or third line? So we say line index, and if the text index, if the character we were on when we were printing is equal to the length of the entire text, which we'd have to change for the different lines, but right now we're just trying to see if we can trigger line by line. If it's equal to that length, then we're going to go ahead and increment our line index. So we're going to say self.lineIndex gets incremented. What did I do there? Gets itself plus 1. So we increment that, and then we would do that. We reset. We'd have to reset our text index back to 1 as well. Or do we initialize it as 1, or do we initialize it as 0, 1? Okay. And then would we reset the text timer? I don't necessarily think so. But, okay. So, instead of printing, right, we're concatenating all the next characters to the result, incrementing our text index. If we have, this is basically saying if we have printed up the entirety of our text string, we're going to increment something called line index. And then I think what we want to do is print up the result. I think we try to do too many different things all at once, because now this is messed up. But basically here in the print, we only want to print what line index we're at. So if our line index is equal to 1, we'd want to print at the first line index. And then we can say if our line index, this is messy, right? But we're just trying to get it to work. I do think this is easier than the toggle method. We get to use a lot less variables. So line index equal to 3, then go ahead and print the same line. So as long as we need to flush our result string, I believe, at the end of this, as well as make sure each time we print, we're printing on the current line offset, which would be 2 and 3. So let's make sure we flush our result. Oh, what's happening here? What is going on? If line index equal to 1, if it's equal to 2, if it's equal to 3. We're missing some syntax somewhere. I don't see it. It's in, oh, else if, gosh. Okay. So right here, when we reset to our next line, we have to set our result back to an empty string so that we can add another population. Okay. Now we are flushing the result string. So they do need their own place to live in the lines table. So I think what we can do, okay, this is close though. I mean, we're getting close. We haven't done any of our pseudocode yet. I mean, kind of. Okay, so we're able to control one line at a time rendering. It's just that when we only print the same string, we're clearing the string, and that's getting rid of the previous results. So we need to print not self-result, but the lines table at index 1, if the line index, and we can add its own index. Okay, let's see. Oh, this... Yeah. Okay, so like we're not doing anything with the result, so we're literally just printing up the whole line of the index. So what we need to do is to add... Right here we need to add... Okay, we're not adding it to the result, we're adding it to the self.lines table. And we need to do it for both. Oops. Yeah, we're gonna have to do... We don't want result here anymore. We want, let's find every self result and replace it with self.lines table at the self.line index, so that each table will get populated one line at a time from the text sub. Okay, so this, okay, we gotta change our text parameter, but if we do this, we shouldn't need to clear our result table because we're not using it anymore. And then we're only concatenating the next character to the index of the table. Oh Jesus, Let's see. Now I think this will get rid of the this is line 1, this is line 2, this is line 3, and I think it'll put it so that it'll be does this line wrap on all 3 lines, but let's see. Okay, so I think our... Oh, Jesus. Try to concatenate a nil value. On what line? Because it started to print it up, right? $27. Oh. Okay, so by the time we increment our line index, we only want to do this if our line index is smaller than 3. Because we don't want to index into a line that we don't have and then try to concatenate a nil value. So as long as the line index is, and we can't just say that the line index is smaller than 3. No, yeah, okay. I think that might stop us from crashing, but it doesn't fix the render issue. Okay. You know, this is getting close. Like we still aren't keeping the text, and we're rendering empty lines. You know, these need to be empty from the get-go. So it's almost like we need the previous line on this one and the 2 previous lines on this one because we need every line of the text, right? Shit. They're still all disappearing like at the same time. Okay, this is not the right way. Okay. This is tough. Are you sure that's ChatGPT, man? I think you might be on something else. You're on like the ghetto free version. Shit, I can't pick apart what's so wrong about it. We're printing up the different line. Okay, no, it makes sense they disappear because we only print a given line index if we're currently on that index, and as we print it, we increment it, so it constantly changes. So that's why I was thinking I could just put it, you know, if we were to put this outside of the conditional, it should stay there when the next texts are going, but it doesn't. So we must be flushing our line index, our lines table somewhere unintentionally. Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah, my brain's about to break. Okay, so let's take it from the top, and we'll try to do it right from getting the parameter of text that we pull in. So like, okay, we have our text. It's from the dot text. We have the length of the text. So the thing is, we need to loop. We need to loop to the next line. Oh my gosh, how do we do this, man? Okay, we're gonna set a timer. We're gonna wait for the trigger. And the trigger is saying also if the text index is... I'm gonna get rid of this for now. Okay, so what we're doing is, we don't want to change the table of self. Actually, I think we do want to do it somewhat like this, where we say, okay, we have a lines table. They're all empty strings. So lines 1 is an empty string, lines 2 is an empty string, lines 3, and then we're gonna say, okay, we're on line index 1 of our line table, and we don't increment the line index until our text index hits our text length. Okay, I think I wanted to actually keep this part. So we're gonna empty string our tables for lines, and this is saying, okay, if we've reached the timer threshold and the index of which character we're on is smaller than or equal to the length of our entire text. We'll need to change that because we need to see whether or not it is smaller than or equal to the... I don't even know how to go about that, because that's where all this pseudocode needs to come in. Okay. Shit, man. Okay. So, okay, I think we were on the right track with populating each table first. So like I do think it is going to be beneficial for us to just try to get each line rendering one at a time, because once that's working, then all we have to do is do our pseudocode to find out which of the text gets put into which of the lines, and we'd separate it by word and spaces and whatnot. So I think if we're able to do this, we're able to get the rest of it done. So all we want to do is set the... See, and this isn't right. We're setting the index of line 1 to be equal to... Yeah, this is wrong. Okay. Because we need the... We're not even using... Okay, no, we are. I'm trying to figure this. I think the problem is we're trying to concatenate values based on this self-text sub, which is not the right thing to do. So like, we don't know what we're trying to... I think the thing we're trying to... Oh gosh. Like I think we might need like a current line 1 result, or like line 1 result, and put it here. Oy, no, because the thing is, we have... This loop only works once we give it a text as a parameter, and it knows the length of that text. So let's say this is very hard for me to think about. So if we black box and like just assume, okay, we get a dot text and then we do our math, and if we were to magically know which line to put it into, but the program won't actually work like that. It'll, oh my goodness, dude. It's so tough. It's so tough. Okay. Because yeah, there's a couple different problems. It's like we need to know how to detect whether or not the next word we're about to print or the next character of the next word we're about to print is going to go off screen. That's one big problem. The next big problem is we have to be able to print consecutive lines in the right spot at the right time. That's the other big problem. And then the other big problem is pagination for strings that go past 3 lines. Let me take a look at what the code used to be here. It used to be result. Result gets current result, concatenate with the sub of the string. And now we have the actual table of the line index, which, okay. Okay. Let's try it. Assuming, oops. Yeah, so I think what we're gonna do is we're just gonna put empty strings in here. I know I keep switching back and forth on this, but we'll put a slightly shorter string in the map declarations. Okay, so we're getting a this is really strange. Okay. Our dot lines table has empty string values. We're saying if our current text index is smaller than the length of our text, then we're going to go ahead and append the next character to our table of lines at the index of our line index. So why is it that we start with a populated lines table? Test index. We're setting test index to 1. And once we pass the timer, we set the table, now self.lines, at index line index. Since line index is 1, that should be this empty string of the first line. So we're saying the empty string of the first line gets the current line concatenated with a subtext from the parameter of text at the text index, so just the character we're at. Then we increment that. Let's do this Let's turn this off and make sure that's not screwing stuff up. Yeah, see, why does the text appear there already? That's what I don't get. Why is lines 1 already having the first line of text? And we don't reset it, okay. Okay, so that's what was happening was we were incrementing the timer regardless of whether or not we were paused, which we should probably only update this if we're paused, right? We should probably only ever update this if we're paused, so we should be able to get rid of this and go into our signpost update, which is in our play state. Right here. Okay, let's see. Son of a bitch. If paused, we want to update. Yeah, what do we do? What do we do? We got rid of text timer altogether. Okay, so we'll put text timer back. We'll delete paused from the signpost update, and instead we will only update if we are paused. Only update our signpost if we're paused. So now it should show up. Okay. So there is our first string that we're not resetting. Oh my goodness. Okay. Okay, let's turn this on. Now we're going to say, okay, if we have printed the first line and we're not on the third line, we're going to go ahead and increment our line and reset our text index to 1 so we can print the new line. But right here, we're only printing the current line that we're on the index of. So let's just see if we have lines 1, 2, and 3. Okay. We got lines 1, 2, and 3, but we need the lines to stay on. Right? Are we resetting this? No, we are not. Okay. So we need to reset this upon quitting, which for us is hitting enter in our play state. Once we hit enter, then it's right here that we want to flush this, I think. So if we hit it and we are not paused, no, if we hit it and we are paused, then we want to reset all of our signposts values to their initial values. So we can probably have a little function for that. Okay, so we do this for every signpost. So I think if we have something that changes our line index back to 1, something that changes our lines table back to empty strings. Oh no, they're a different instantiation anyway, so this shouldn't matter. So why is it that we don't reset upon enter pressing? Oh my gosh, that freaked me out. Hey, thank you for the follow. Wow, that freaked me out. Okay. We're close to getting what we want. Yeah, man, Katron, I was zoned out. No, you're good. You're good. Yeah. It's always been there. I should probably turn it down on the alerts, but also I think it's funny too, so I kind of just been leaving it. But it really does catch me off guard a lot of the time. Okay. So the issue right now is we're just not resetting the dialogue. It's because our line index isn't getting reset. So we'd have to reset the line index for the signpost upon enter being pressed in our play state. So enter's being pressed. We're going to make sure we go into, and this is where it's just so disgusting. We go into our global map. We go into the current scene we're at, into the current map we're viewing, into the current row, and then the corresponding column, because all our signposts are stored in the current, in the corresponding map. So we're going to say that we're going to go into the signposts table at the index of K and go into the line index, and set it back to 1 if square is pressed, because we render starting line 1. I think that's right. Let's see. Okay, so it didn't reset our, it reset our line index, but it did not reset our character that we were printing, which is our text index. We need to also get set back to 1, I think. Test index, okay. Text index gets set back to 1. Let's see if we can reset it. Okay, does the text wrap here? It doesn't. Are you talking about the game? Orugak? Context about the game? We're trying to get the, yeah, so I am using Love2d, which is an open source game engine, and I'm using Lua, the scripting language, to program in it. There's no real user interface for it, unlike like Godot or Unity, so it's all, code-based programming. So I'm trying to, I'm building this game to teach myself game development, and we're building a top-down adventure game like Link's Awakening. And right now we've got, we're working on the dialogue system, but we made some NPCs this week, and we have some enemies, and the game's about casting spells and adventure and music, because we've got these little enemies you can clear with your spells. And then there's also like a little loot Guitar Hero mini game. So if you hit the right frets and the right notes, you can, you know, play music. So the game, you know, it's been maybe 6 months in development or so, and we're just working on my whole theory has been I want to get it done in 2 years, and I want to try to ship it in about 1.5 years from now. I want to try to stick as close to that as humanly possible. So my theory has been go for the biggest things that we need. So it's like we've got the ability to draw our whole map and import them in based on numbers. So like this is like the one graphical tool that we were able to use, but ultimately all it's doing is exporting which tile from our tile sheet goes where. And we wrote a little data downloader that goes and inputs all the tile IDs into the correct tables so that our game knows which sprites to render. So that's the one kind of graphical tool that we've been using. It's called Tiled, and it works good with Lua. So like it's able to export a .lua file that we can come in and chop it into the correct data. And yeah, I've been making the sprite pixel art on stream here by myself. The you know, I'll pull up reference from Link's Awakening to kind of get me going, because pixel art's super tough. So I'll pull up like reference art. I'm not even seeing it. Stuff like this, like to reference from Zelda games and stuff, so that I can kind of get an idea of how they pulled off certain stuff. But for the most part, yeah, it's just me making the art and figuring it out as I go along. So yeah, the theory has been trying to do the biggest bang for our buck stuff. So we've got the mapped system where we can have up to 100 maps or even more, but right now we've got 100 maps we can export. You know, we got the screen rendering, we've got the spell casting, we've got the loot minigame, we've got the NPCs now, and we're working on dialogue now, because that's like the next big, we need to get this working. So once we get the dialogue working for the signposts, we'll transfer the system over to the NPCs and then worry about how we're going to give certain text to certain NPCs upon talking. It is cool. We've got the collision detection working for it. So it's like you can't read the signpost if you're above it, but if you're on the side of it, it'll pull it up. But if you're just far enough, you can't read it. So you've got to be close enough. But yeah, we're working on trying to get, and we're so far backwards from where we were yesterday. It's just that there's like a tiny little thing that's bugging me about the way it's wrapping the text that I want to be able to fix. So that's what I'm trying to do now. Dude, A-Sprite is so tough. Like I watched a stream of someone doing it, making it look easy, and I bought A-Sprite thinking it was so easy, and then I just realized how insanely difficult pixel art is. So yeah, I'm with you. It is super tough. Super tough. I can't decide if we need to flush the timer or not. If we go to our play state. Okay, we take our result to 1. Okay, so this must be it. We've got to okay, yeah. We've got to reset all of our tables to empty strings so that we can repopulate them. So, oh, okay, cool. That's awesome. I'm getting into back-end stuff. I took a programming boot camp, so I've built some stuff with back-end stuff. I recently did some Python and Flask for a work application I built outside of the job because it's not a programming job, but I'm trying to go into that field. So that's what I'm trying to get hired in, a computer programming field, which I should have an interview coming up. I had an interview yesterday that actually went really well for an internship, and then I've got a interview coming up for an apprenticeship hopefully next week. So I'll keep y'all updated on how that goes. But yeah, we do need to flush. We need to flush and reset our table of lines is the thing. So we need our dot lines to be set to empty upon this. So we'll try to do this. So dot lines, empty table. Okay. So we'll go into this each signpost, into each lines field, and set it equal to an empty string. Okay, now it should reset. Yeah, so Katron, yesterday was my first programming interview like ever. I've had some mock interviews with my class. Oh, yes, that's it. I've had some mock interviews with my instructors for boot camp, but I haven't had a real interview, and it actually went really well. Yeah, it helped me out a lot that I had made some custom software for my work, and I brought that up, and he asked me a lot of technical questions because he was the CTO, and I was able to tell him what tools I used and everything, and he said I was a super strong candidate. So I think it went well. Like the interview went longer than it was scheduled for because we were just talking about stuff. Okay. So this is working, but the thing that isn't working is we're not rendering each line. You know, we want the previous line to stay on. Dude, it was actually a fully remote position, but it was an internship that is part-time, and I'm looking for as much programming as I possibly can do. So I'm hoping, I'm trying to get on a team where I'm the dumbest guy on the team and I can just soak in all that information and work full-time and grow. So that's my kind of goal. So if this apprenticeship comes through this next week and I get an interview with them, I'm going to be talking to them about, how many people are on your team, how much time would I get as an apprentice with the mentor or whatever, because that's the deal with the apprenticeship is I get paired with a mentor specifically for a whole year, and they pay for my corresponding classes to go take C++ programming and .NET and C# programming classes. So I'm looking for more of the full-time route. So I'm hoping, if I'm not in consideration for the apprenticeship, then I would definitely love to take the position, the internship I got interviewed for yesterday. But we'll just have to see what pans out. Okay. So the issue here is that and you know what? I've got to check something real quick. I've got to check the... sorry, Orugak. I don't know how to say your name, but my background is I've just been teaching myself programming through CS50 online the past 4 years or so. So I've been just, teaching myself through video game development and YouTube courses or whatever. And I recently, it was in April, I took a full stack web development bootcamp. So that was a big introduction to a lot of different technologies. So now, I had done HTML and CSS and JavaScript before, but this was like, oh, now we're using Postgres and we're doing TypeScript and we're deploying to the web and everything. So it taught me all of those things. So now I feel quite poised for a programming position versus before the boot camp I was like, look at the game I made and that's like about it, but now I can say like, hey, I built this full stack application, here's the deployment, here's my portfolio website, here's my other website, here's a tool I made for my work. So now I'm feeling much better. Like my interview went really well because I was really confident in my abilities right now. Yeah, as a entry level programmer, but I'm looking for basically I won't say anything that is programming, but I just want experience building things. So it's like I don't really need it to be in one certain discipline, but if I work on a team with more skilled developers than me and I can learn, I just want to be surrounded by people who are building new things, and I want that stuff to rub off on me as I learn to build new things. And then I'm trying to, stream game development on Twitch in the meantime. I'm going to check something real quick because I might have a meeting coming up. Yeah, the boot camp, I was the only classmate who had like prior programming experience going into it, and I was happy to help the class and teach the class, but also like I want to be the dumbest guy on the team, like I want to be learning from everyone. I do love teaching though. You're from Spain? Hey, that's cool. I hear great things about Spain. Unless that was a typo. Span. Okay, so these lines are why it's only printing one line at a time. So we would want to print... I don't get why we can't just do the old... If we're on line index 3, why don't we print the first line index as well? Oh yeah, we'd have to say print the first line as well as the second line, right? Nice. Okay, that's finally it. So yeah, that is... Then here we would say, okay, well, by the time we're printing the third line, we want to print the first line that's already printed, the second line that's already printed, and the third line which we're currently printing. Oh, gotcha. Oruga. Okay. Nice. That's cool. Yeah. Okay, I won't call you Oragok. I'll call you Oruga. That's cool. Okay. Sweet. Okay. So we're still at a place behind where we were at the beginning of the episode, in the sense that we're not technically wrapping the text, because now it just wraps to the next line. So we're at the point where now we can finally get to our pseudocode. I'm just going to walk through the idea here, because it's like, basically right now we have an empty table of lines, and we're putting the text parameter that we pass into the signpost as the starting text for each of these lines. That's why every line is the same. So what we need to do instead is separate this text out into we need to separate it into multiple lines, and ultimately multiple pages. Because if we have, the end goal is like, if we type in a paragraph, we want it to nicely wrap the lines, but also stop printing and add a little like ... or whatever for you to paginate to the next line, and then continue move forward through, so that we can give a big paragraph, and all we have to do is type the paragraph, and then our program handles it for us. We don't have to worry about the formatting because we already did it. So the pseudocode for this is once we find a word in our text, we go to print it up on the current line index, right? Now, if the character is not a space, then we know we're in a word, and and therefore we need to count. We need to go continue to cycle through the string until it is a space, and then we would have what index is the end of the next word, and at that point we need to compare the current line with the width of the next word, and if that total combination is bigger than our text box limit, then we want to increment our line index so that we go and add it to the next line. It isn't monospaced, unfortunately. We had to test that already. Why don't you choose carefully how the text will be formatted in the sign? Yeah, well, so the idea is this text dialog box will go for like the sign is going to be easy because we'll actually probably change how it's rendering the sign, because there won't ever be more than a couple words on the sign. It'll be like desert this way, but I think I'm just in the realm of like, hey, this is a dialog box, why don't we get it typing one character at a time? And then, it probably would. It's just that we're at such a low resolution that it is very hard to make good texts at this tiny of a resolution. So the pixel texts we could choose a monospace pixel font, but out of the 20 or so I tried, I only really liked the one I ended up with here, because it looks good for capital letters and lowercase letters and symbols, whereas some of the monospaced ones just looked ugly. So yeah, because the game here is actually legitimately rendered at Game Boy resolution. So if we go into here, we can toggle the actual game resolution here, and I can show you how big it is. It's that's literally how big the game is. We're just using a library to scale it up to the screen, but that's how big the game is, which means that the font is that big. So anything smaller than that, it's literally on a pixel by pixel basis for the font. So it's anything smaller, or yeah, I'm with you though. I didn't think about the monospacedness of the issue here, but we're able to figure it out. I just liked this font I found, so and it had a license to use it, so I was like, okay, I'll just decide on this one and I'll move forward, because I'm not trying to spend too much time on little stuff like that. I'm trying to just be able to ship the game, but then here I am trying to make a custom text wrap for the dialogue system. So there we are. Okay, so right now what we've done is we changed it so that instead of using printf, and you know what, we can probably use I think what I want to do here is say, we don't have the width of each letter at runtime, but we can get the width of a given string using the font get width method. So we would basically just count until we've reached the end of the word, and then add the widths of our current string that we have printed and the width of the end of that word. So we have to do some magic in there, but we're able to calculate it so that we can say, okay, if we were to print this word, that would be past the screen limit, therefore we should just add it to the next line and then continue going forward. So the pagination and the width determination before we print it, that's definitely the hardest part of doing this, because we've already added I want to say 25 lines or something just to get back to a worse spot where we were earlier. But yeah, and it's teaching me a lot too, because it's this is you know, we can, if we had a thing that did the thing for us, then we don't get to learn how to build the thing. So I think it's cool where I can make some decisions here and being like, you know what, this is bugging me. Let's try to do it for real, or, you know, do it our way without a built way, and it'll just teach me a lot. So one thing I do want to do is kind of turn all of this into a single function for our signpost, and then sorry, I got a meeting coming up here. Okay, so let's just try to wrap this into a function real quick, and then we'll call it a day because I've got stuff to do. But we'll come in here and we'll give us a function called reset or flush text or something. So we'll say signpost flush text, and it won't take in an argument, but the things we want it to do is to essentially reset our lines, reset our line index and our text index. So we'll reset our line index to 1 here. Yeah. So line index to 1. We want our lines table to be empty. And then we want our text index to be set to 1. And then now instead of those 3 lines, we can just call our flush text function, which should give us the same functionality. So let's make sure when we go back into our play state, instead of these 3 lines, we're going to go into our signpost and run one thing, and that thing is flush text. Is that what I called it? Flush text. And then, all right. Okay, so we've got text coming up, and we've got, we click it again, we flush our text. So we just saved us a couple of, couple of lines over there. Let's make sure our other signpost is still working. This is a super long. Okay, it is working. Okay, so that function works. Okay, so I will end stream here with this in the current state. So at least we've got the manual line offset for the Y position. We're sequentializing the text printing until each line is done being printed. So what's left to do is determine which text from our parameter goes onto which line table and how to do pagination. So we've got some pseudocode here for doing that, so we at least have a start for tomorrow. And I think with stuff like this, the hardest part is getting the wheel rolling. So at least we've got it rolling, and now we can actually work on implementing our pseudocode for the real deal. This does look gross, not gonna lie, but we're learning to do it ourselves, which is cool. So I'll call it there, and let's check out all we've done. We gave us a couple more values. We don't use these line 1 printed, I don't believe. So we should probably get rid of those before we commit. Line printed, yeah. Let's get rid of those lines printed. Okay, I always end up doing that. So we'll go to our signposts, and we'll just get rid of the lines printed because we don't use that anymore. We don't want to commit those because that might just confuse us in the future. We should still have it working. Cool. So we don't have the wrapping yet, but we do have each line sequentially rendering, and it's just rendering the same line we give it in our map declaration for now, but we'll have to split it up, and that'll be tomorrow because right now these are the two texts that we place in. You know, this is the super long text. Does the text wrap here or not? So we'll have to splice that into potentially multiple lines and into potentially multiple pages. So that is up next on the docket, and we will get add all, and we will commit saying we are manually adding text wrap. Actually, yeah, we all we did was manually add multiline dialogue Y offset. I don't know, dialogue. Need to parse text param for multi-line and multi-page arguments. I always feel mixed about leaving like notes for what I'm about to do in the commit message, because that's not really what I should be commit messaging. It's just sometimes helps me wrap my head around what I'm doing, but I'll call it there. Hey, thank you for the Primogen clap. I appreciate it. Yeah, we got the NeoVim set up. I know Primogen helped me get it set up, so I got a lot to thank him for. But thank you for watching. I'll be back tomorrow with some more programming. We'll raid out here. Let's see if let's see who is streaming game dev stuff that we can raid. We've got an ad break. We've got, yeah, I think I'm just gonna raid Hypnotic Games because his stream is always cool. He's always working on game stuff. So I'll raid out to Hypnotic Games, and I'll catch y'all later. Thank you for hanging out. Thanks for chatting, and I'll catch ya tomorrow if you're down. Raid Hypnotic Games. Okay, great. Hey, have a good night, y'all.